talking to Dan Schwartz. How long have we known each other?
It goes back to an ABA Young Lawyers Conference in Montreal, Canada, if you can remember that. It was
Yep, I do remember.
May of, God, what was it? 2007, I think. Something like that. Yeah, May 2007 in Montreal. I got up I think it was a Saturday morning. You had the early morning slot, which, after a very late night out, I will say. And you gave this little talk on blogging that was there. And I think I came up to you afterwards and said, hey, this might be something I'm interested in doing. And you probably thought I was crazy then, but we ended up talking and working from there.
Yeah, I almost remembered it as like, I'm going to do this. I remember you saying that I'm going to do this or something.
I had it in my head at that point. There were a couple of people who were blogging at some point or another, Ernie the attorney, and a few others, and I went, this is something that I think I could do about it. But I had I'd had it in my head for probably a year or two, but had no way of getting it off the ground. And that's what you provided. It was like, hey, if you just spend this money, we can do this for you. I think you got me talking to the guy from Delaware Francis. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because that was such the early days, but like Lexblog was like 3 years into this, of which I was earning no salary. I told somebody that story recently. They said, well, what do you do? I said, well, you fill out the college student loan applications and your wife has a salary and I have zero.
Hey, I thought you were like this, this guy who knew what he was talking about then. Only now did I realize you've been learning as much as we have. But
there really was no right or wrong.
No.
There were 2 books on blogging, and then I tried to figure out if I was blogging, I wouldn't want to be embarrassed if I was a lawyer, and what would be the things I'd be embarrassed about if we could provide that, as the answer that would help people. But you've been published in the Connecticut Employment Law blog that length of time,
13 years.
13 years. And
just about, yeah.
And so how many years have you been practicing when you started it?
12. So I've now been writing a blog longer than I've been practicing. So actually this month and almost to the very week is 25 years from when I graduated law school at Washington University.
One of the things, I'd like to ask you, really, I wanted to chat with you about, blogging during the pandemic and the different things that go on. But now that we're sitting here talking, I realize I haven't even talked to you about some of the things that are some of the most interesting things to me. What does your family think of the blog? Like, what do your kids think of Dad blogging?
You know what? Their most interesting thing is when people come up to me and they're like, you're kind of like a rock star. Like you have fans. Like they're kind of weird. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not TikTok. It's not that type of thing. And, so, they find it both humorous, but also from their perspective, almost a little like out of date, like blogging, like, that's writing a lot and things. So, I think they humor me, and I humor them too. I did a post 2 weeks ago about Charlie D'Amelio and TikTok and employment law, and tied it all together. And I would never have done that but for my kids who got me like, hey, you need to see this social media thing. So it works both ways.
Yeah, when I realized like what you've done with your blog as far as building a name, you've moved firms, there's blogs that have helped. They're going to basically, not directly, help put kids through college because of what they did for mom and dad to help them be good lawyers, do good work.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to say I'm no better an attorney than I was beforehand, but Google thinks that I am. But I don't think that that's entirely the case anymore, because I think blogging has made me a better person too, and a better
Yeah, I think that,
attorney. And so I do think it does work both. But yeah, I mean, you know, look, when I started the blog, I had as a model one of my now law partners who was out there. He was on radio. I would see him a lot, and I'm like, how is he out there? And like, I have no visibility. I've been practicing law for 10 years about this. Now he would say, look, you're the king of blogs in Connecticut.
right.
You're probably the most well-known legal blogger in the state. And it's kind of come full circle from that as well.
Yeah, it's now we've got this pandemic going on. I mean, you're practicing at home,
Mm-hmm.
in sophisticated matters. It's not like if you'd have gone to your clients and said, "I think I'm going to move home," I said, okay.
Yeah, you know.
I'll be seeing you without suits in here now. What's it all been like? I mean, all of a sudden, blogging within this pandemic. I mean, do you feel compelled to blog more, address more issues? What's going on?
It's funny. I have to say there was probably a point last year when I was struggling to find something new to write about. And I think that happens in any sort of life cycle of a blog. You get those periods where I don't try to just write about every new thing that comes out, because you're always chasing the headlines. I've always tried to zag where people zig, and that's me. And it's in some ways it's easier because a lot of the major law firms have now blogging, and they're all just posting, here's what's happened type thing. So how do you add value to that conversation? How do you add context and things? And in the pandemic, that voice is most needed, right? People want to hear not only what do they need to know, but put it into context. And so this has been in some ways natural for blogging, because it's what I've always done, which is I have the curiosity. I want to find out what's going on and then tell people about it. And this takes me back right to the very start when it was really easy to write. It's been really easy to write the last 9 weeks, in part because you're talking and you're talking to people who want the information, and you're also sharing personal anecdotes as well, because that has always been a part of my writing, which is being able to sort of not just make a blog like here's just the facts. Well, I can read that in a law school, a law review. I don't want to do that. It's more of, hey, here's what you're going through. So my post today was all about how employers are going to open up, but look, we've all adjusted. And it was like, I did a car parade for my wife last week. What the heck was a car parade 2 months ago? I did contactless grocery deliveries. We never got our groceries ordered. We're doing a Zoom chat like this. Did you know what Zoom was 3 months ago?
No.
Right. So we've all adjusted really quickly when you put it into context. And I think being able to talk about that on my blog, it's what my blog is made for.
Yeah. Does it give you, I mean, maybe you even just answered the question, but does it give you more meaning to your blogging, what this is going on and the impact of all the lives and the catastrophes? I mean, just, 1,000 lives lost in one day in New York at one time.
It has, look, Connecticut is one of the worst hit states.
Right.
And per capita, I think we're third on our rate of death. And if you're in Connecticut, you're very likely to know someone that's either been sick or lost someone. And I've known several people who have been sick or who have lost relatives. So to be able to help people through the blog, I know you have a lot of questions, but and we don't have all the answers, but we can say that. And to be able to talk through that and hear from people. I've got a group of other employment law bloggers that we chat. And we've chatted a lot more during this time. But I've also heard from lots of lawyers in the state who have said, look, I really appreciate what you've been writing. Here's what I'm seeing too. So they're giving me ideas, and we're able to build relationships. You've long preached that if you're, the blog is a platform. And so, if you're, it's only an entryway into a conversation.
Right.
If you don't take advantage of that and have those sort of offline communications, then you're missing out on a whole part of it. So I've connected with people I hadn't spoken with in a few years because of the blog. Hey, I saw this, and it's been great. Again, it's been among the most rewarding times to have a blog out there, which is weird.
Yeah, but what you just said about rewarding times. I mean, you go to law school and you're thinking somehow this is going to make a difference. There's a nobility to this profession. It was called profession, not just a job. And then this all happens, and you're talking about Connecticut being right next to New York, and it's part of it. It's part of everything. And so
Yeah.
people are dying. When you've got EMTs that are dealing with victims, you got nurses, doctors, medical professionals at hospitals. It's not like we can go run in and help, directly there. So to me, I was feeling like, how do I help? It's just this thing in the back of the mind, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I know how to use the internet. You know how to blog very well. You're helping, and you're helping people that have different types of issues, and you feel like you're doing good. It's interesting what you said about, more lawyers showing up that are looking like, that are more interested in some of these issues that people are blogging about and whatnot. Because I'm seeing more lawyers show up places like Twitter, LinkedIn Legal Blogging Group. I don't know if it's a combination of them being afraid of what's going to happen to their career, but I think there's also some of the, how do I help? How can I contribute to what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a big part of a lot of people's lawyers' DNA is the helping, right? And you go in with a little bit of idealism, and you come out with a little bit of practicality to it as well. But I think this time was sort of made for those lawyers, right? Of how can we help about it. And when you've been practicing law as long as I have now, you've sort of realized it's not only a responsibility, it's a privilege, right? That people are looking at you about it. And the blog is only one part. I mean, I helped in a small way to form the Connecticut Bar's pandemic response team, and I'm on that task force about it. And that's, again, how can we build of what we have so that we can help people. And a blog can, is in one way, hey, here's the information on employment law in Connecticut. Here's what I can give to you about it. And you don't worry. You don't worry. Hey, am I going to make money off of this? If you're doing it that way, it's just it's never going to pay the rewards. Instead, the most rewarding calls I've gotten from this are from other attorneys who have retained me for counsel, in part because they've read things and they say, we're lost. We need your help. That's the highest compliment, right? The lawyer's lawyer.
Yeah, the
highest compliment.
Yeah.
So and the blog has been that vehicle.
I mean, the idea of focusing on help. I mean, that was when I talked to Jeff Nowak in Chicago. Jeff just wouldn't. I mean, he's similar to you in ideals, aspirations. His kids are a little bit younger. They celebrate the FMLA.
Jeff's one of those people that we chat a bunch, and I will say, people like him and John Hyman, Kate Bischoff, and Mark Oliphant. I mean, like, I don't know how I would have gotten through some of that without them. We were able to bounce ideas off of, and even expand our universe of, hey, here's what I'm hearing. What are you hearing? It's invaluable. And that's only because of the blog, right? I mean, it's an artificial connection, and yet you've made it real.
You guys ought to start one of those things like Ambrosi did with This Week in Legal Tech. All of a sudden you got 5 or 6 people. I mean, I told Bob, I said, what a great idea. You could have This Week in Employment Law. You could have, 4 or 5 of you guys all around the country.
and Mark and Kate now has restarted their podcast, and it's great, because of that.
Last question on it. When, because I can think of some lawyers and they're thinking about, okay, how do you get your topics? I mean, it's the same that you've probably been doing all along. But now the pandemic has hit. Where do your topics come from?
My topics come from questions I get.
Yep.
And I go, if so-and-so has that question, then, and it's not necessarily a client, it can be from something else. So I gave a webinar for the Connecticut bar last week, and someone asked the question like, hey, the guidelines say that people 65 and older shouldn't be going into work. Doesn't that raise an age discrimination issue? And I went, that would make a really good blog post. So, and it's reading stuff. I'll get an idea from my wife. I'll get it from all sorts of things. And I like drawing from pop culture. I think that's something that's a universal thing that we can all relate to. We may not have the same pop culture anymore that we have, but I think that's, you get ideas from that.
The last thing that I'll, mention why we're even on here is I really want to thank you. I mean, I watched the cancer fight that Carol went through, which seemed like years, and knowing people, it becomes very touching, and praying for people and praying for their families. And when Jill was diagnosed with cancer, one night, I remember the first email I think I sent was to you, and said, what, this is going on, and I don't know what I even said. And I was sitting out in the hallway outside her room. I opened up this email from you, and it's about that long, telling me, this is what you're feeling right now. This is what you're going to be able to hear from the doctor. Probably not a whole lot as they're talking to you. I think you said you're going to probably cry uncontrollably for about 24 or 48 hours. What's going to happen after a few days, and I opened that many times because it was like how it actually was going on, and then you would drop me notes and say what you and Carol the kids were doing. You'd be out lighting a candle for us on walks. You had Rabbi saying prayers for Jill at the synagogue. It was very helpful, and there were many times when I, because Jill's never met you, or Carol or your kids, but I would say, show her the notes that you might send me, and say that here's what's going on. Should I say that's very nice, and it's hard to know what goes on in somebody's head, all the time when they have cancer and what their fears and trepidations are, because I think they keep some of that inward. But that was very helpful. And mornings to wake up and, there'd be a text from you. I would just say, hey, I just wanted you to know I was thinking about you this morning. Very, very appreciative. You guys did, amazing things for us by doing that. So I can't thank you enough, and even just to let other people know what you did do, you guys. And I feel, I think cancer is never over. There's always the fear, but it's wonderful to watch the pictures of your family, and see mom there.
We're at year 6 from diagnosis, and I think, look, the best friend for me during the whole time was someone who helped me get through it by doing what I tried to do with you. And I know at some point in the next couple of years, someone else, because unfortunately it's too prevalent, is going to go through the same thing, and you'll be there
Yeah.
for them. And if we can all remember that, and particularly through this pandemic too, to try to be in
Yeah.
someone else's shoes. I'm not sure whether you said it or someone else, but I read something and it really touched me, which is getting on an airplane. Just try to think about, like, you're there for travel, for business, or whatever else, but what's that other person there for? Are they going to visit a sick relative and something else? And trying to be a little sympathetic to the plight of others. And I think, if we don't take some lessons out of this pandemic and some things to go from, we're just going to go back to the same routines, and hopefully we'll build some new ones from it too. So
Yeah, I think that's right.